The Book of the Revelation of Jesus. The author of this book, which is not called Revelations, by the way, is named at the beginning. It was written by John, which could refer to the beloved disciple who wrote the Gospel and the letters of John, or it could be a different John, a messianic Jewish prophet who traveled about and taught in the early church. Whichever John it was, he makes clear in the opening paragraph what kind of book he has written. He calls it, first of all, a revelation or apocalypse. The Greek word is apokalypsis, and it refers to a type of literature very familiar to John's readers from the Hebrew Scriptures and from other popular Jewish texts. Apocalypses recounted a prophet's symbolic dreams and visions that revealed God's heavenly perspective on history and current events so that the present could be viewed in light of history's final outcome. And John says this apocalypse is a prophecy, which means it's a word from God spoken through a prophet to God's people, usually to warn or comfort them in a time of crisis. By calling this book a prophecy, John's saying that it stands in the tradition of the biblical prophets and is bringing their message to a climax. And this apocalyptic prophecy was sent to real people that John knew. The book opens and closes as a circular letter that was sent to 7 churches in the ancient Roman province of Asia. Now, 7 is a meaningful number for John. It's a symbol of completeness based on the 7-day Sabbath cycle in the Old Testament, and John has woven 7s into every single part of this book. Now, with this opening, John has given us clear guidance about how he wants us to understand this book. Jewish apocalypses communicated through symbolic imagery and numbers. It is not a secret predictive code about the timing of the end of the world. Rather, John is constantly using these symbols that are drawn from the Old Testament, and he expects his readers to go discover what the symbols mean by looking up the text he's alluding to. Also, the fact that it's a letter means that John is actually addressing the situation of these first century churches. And so while this book has much to say to Christians of later generations, the book's meaning must first be anchored in the historical context of John's time, place, and audience.
Hi there, we're starting a new series, and I hope you're as excited about it as I am. That little video that you just watched is a part of a longer video that's about 20 minutes long done by the Bible Project. If you want to go watch that yourself and see the whole thing in context. Actually, they build a massive chart before it's over, and we'll be showing some more of these as we go along because it's really nice visual summary of the different sections of the book of Revelation. This is a book that has a lot of mystery. There's a lot of people that think they are authorities on it. In fact, I used to think I was an authority. I'm going to let you laugh at me. I can't believe I'm going to do this, but here is a brochure for one of the prophecy seminars that I did back when I was much younger. In fact, if you can see my picture, there's Celine and I. She did some health talks for me, and I got up there in my suit and I preached about the mark of the beast and acted like I had the whole thing figured out. I had newspaper advertisements about these prophecy lectures, and I got a whole notebook full of this stuff. I look at this and wish I still had that hair, but I'm glad I don't have to wear that suit at Grace Place. So there's been a lot of water under the bridge, as you can see, since those days, and there's also been a lot of theological processing and maturing. I no longer have the same take on Revelation that I used to, which was basically thinking that I had it all figured out. I come to the book with a lot more humility now and a much more Christ-centered perspective rather than thinking about end-time events and how they're all going to click off. There is a final crescendo at the end of Revelation that tells us about where history is going, and it's very exciting because in the end, the Lamb wins. Jesus is called the Lamb 28 times in the book of Revelation, and it makes us remember the cross and his sacrificial offering for us. So as you get into this, a few words of encouragement. First of all, let's not be authorities. Let's just let the text speak to us, and let's try to see if we can understand it as we think about it in historical context first, and then also how we can make it relevant and apply it to our lives. Some of the applications that I would like to encourage you to consider throughout this whole series. First of all, there is encouragement when you're suffering. These Christians in the first century were being persecuted, they were suffering, and they're strong words of encouragement. Hang in there. God is with you. Jesus is going to win in the end, and all of his followers are going to win with him. Also, there is some warning. There's warning against worldly compromise, against complacency, and that's still a very relevant message today for all of us who are so tempted to become more like the world instead of like Jesus. Also, watch for the theme of worship in this book, because that's a central issue. Who am I going to worship? Who has my allegiance? Who has my heart? Who has my first and best attention? Is it Jesus? Or in the case of the first century Christians, is it Caesar? We have other temptations today besides Caesar, but we have many of them that would try to take first place in our life rather than Jesus. So I hope you have a good time in your group. Here's where we're going. From now till Thanksgiving, we're going to be in the first 5 chapters. So most of the stuff that's about beasts and dragons and prostitutes and blood and gore and violence and earthquakes and all that stuff we're going to be getting into that in January when we get into the heart of the book. But this is a very important foundation for us to go through verse by verse before we get there. It's setting the stage. And so I want to encourage you to not argue in your groups. Okay, let's play nice together because some people are very opinionated. Maybe you've never studied Revelation and this is just all new to you. But if you have studied it before, there are many different views, and sometimes people can get kind of argumentative or divisive. Let's not do that. That's not the culture of Grace Place, and let's not have that happening in any of our groups. We can agree to disagree if we have different opinions about it, and still do that agreeably and still get along with each other. So God bless you, and I hope you enjoy this new series.